Good morning or good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure to invite our first presenter of the day, Ms. Ewemade Atake, Manager Industry Solutions Africa and Middle East, IATA, who will make the presentation on the theme, right skilling and meeting training needs to support the industry restart. Ewemade, in her role at IATA, oversees IATA's commercial activities in Africa and Middle East, and she also connects the region to other various aviation training and financial services. Please feel free to send us questions through the question app. Also, we welcome your comments on the comments tab. We shall take the questions with the presenter at the tail end of her presentation. Ewemade, for the next 15 minutes, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Maureen, for the introduction. Good day, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I'm honored to be invited to make a presentation on the training needs to support the industry restart. It's well known that a happier workforce, no, the previous slide, please. A happier workforce is clearly associated with companies' ability to deliver better customer satisfaction. A recent study has shown that when employees suffer, customers suffer, and ultimately so does the bottom line. Right skilling, as is written on the slide, simply means retraining your workforce and acquiring people with the right skills to fill the gaps. Reskilling, upskilling, cross-skilling employees is very key to the restart plan. Next slide, please. As we all know, COVID-19 forced the industry to lay off about 400,000 employees, some of whom are returning to work after a long absence. As the aviation industry is very technical and highly regulated in its operations, the need to train returning staff and new hires will grow rapidly as the recovery sets in. Next slide. IATA carried out a research this year to understand what was keeping human resources makers in our industry awake. We needed to understand how they were coping with the pandemic. So based on this, we now had to carry out a report. The report was a global study of over, it was a global study of over 800 human resources leaders to uncover their future plans to develop the skills of the workforce as we recover from the pandemic. Next slide. So the study uncovered the following. First of all, it told us that COVID resulted in 70% of most organizations' training budgets removed or cut in half, especially training delivered by outsourced providers. Organizations with less than 50 employees were really impacted. It also showed that 36% changed their training delivery methods from face-to-face to distant learning solutions, as classroom trainings were either cancelled or postponed until further notice. 11% were unable to provide any skills development during the crisis. They were in a limbo stage. They didn't know what to do. We also uncovered that a lot of learning and development decision makers identified safety, operations, security, and economic economic disciplines as key areas they plan to focus on for their operational restarts. Although 85% human resource decision makers switched to e-learning and digital learning as key for skills development, it's worthy to note that smaller organizations and certain regions face greater challenges in mobilizing online learning. Next slide, please. The study went on to further elaborate some certain things. For the restart, the human resources realized that they had to utilize their existing employees to perform various functions. Most decision makers needed to understand the competencies required for the restart. There was also a need to look deeply into the curriculum of their staff, identify the training needs that are required during the crisis and even beyond the crisis in line with international standards and best practice. They had to develop agile training plans to train the staff on multiple functions, maximize the use of on-the-job training with new hires on top of their daily functions. If you look at the right side of this presentation, we also uncovered that the training impact can only be achieved by internal collaborations, which meant that they had to actually, the human resources had to develop internal courses to process, internal courses or process to be used by the employees. They had to utilize senior employees to train junior staff. They had to do cross-training. What does cross-training mean? It means the practice of training people to work in different roles or training them to do tasks that lies outside their normal responsibilities. They also had to inculcate social learning. It was important for the human resources to establish an organized culture of learning. That was very, very key. So training is very, very crucial for the recovery plans, especially as it helps to reduce the lapses the lapses in operations. And employees that have to be at home, they will need to be reskilled as well as new hires. For the recovery plans to proceed, training is considered, online training was considered to be the best fit. Internal sources had to be deployed for the restart due to budget constraints. They had to use their internal resources to meet the gaps, to bridge the gaps. The study also found that we had some key takeaways that also showed us that 60% of the learning and decision makers considered that there was a need for a training needs analysis of the organizational skills to understand what best fits them. And then they also needed a competency-based training assessment to be done from an external provider that would make a huge impact on their training programs going forward. These are some of the key takeaways that came out of the study. Next slide, please. So the study went on further to give further insights that so far, aviation organizations, as bad as it was, they were able to navigate in COVID-19 pandemic by just focusing on the key disciplines, which I had already mentioned earlier. These key disciplines allowed them to better cope with the situation and prepare for the restart. Safety skills was highlighted as being critical for the airlines, the ground service operators, and the airports. Operational skills to ensure efficiency, and the soft skills such as resilience and adaptability were also very, very crucial. COVID-19, as we all know, it triggered a shift. Sorry, previous slide. So COVID-19 triggered a shift in perception around training delivery method. It's very worthy to note that 74% of the human resource organizations rated e-learning as an important training delivery method where you can train at your convenience using your laptop or your iPad. 60% considered classroom virtual training for a more regulated training where there was a need to interact with an instructor and to share their views or their present situation, role play and all that. So it was necessary to interact with an instructor online real time. 33% considered webinar more effective than face-to-face classroom instruction. And as a result of COVID-19 and social distance, 20% considered virtual reality a good training alternative to classroom, especially for ground operators who needed to have more practical activities. 14% considered conventional training to be low and would decline in importance as we go across board. So if you look at the right side of the presentation, what we also observed from the study was that there's a slight disconnect between the training needs desired by the organizations and those identified by the trainees. You would notice that the employers placed a greater importance on operational skills and adaptability, while trainees prefer to refine their management potential and enhance their commercial knowledge during the pandemic. Next slide, please. So the previous slides had shown what we did, how we are able to, what we uncovered from the study. But in support of the industry during pandemic, IATA came up with some initiatives. First of all, we transformed critical training courses such as dangerous goods into a virtual format to enable attendance in the face of travel restrictions. Because we noticed that there was a lot of demand for dangerous goods training certificates were being expired, so we had to convert them to virtual formats. We developed a special online training for former cabin crew staff that had lost their job to help them realize their potential and skills that could be used in other industries. That training alone, we had 3,000 participants that enrolled for it. We developed an e-learning module for the transport of temperature-controlled pharma products and vaccines by air. We also provided support to ground handlers in managing their supply during the pandemic and enabling maintenance of vital equipment. For the restart, we developed a safety awareness program for the new hires, whereby they can embrace the safety aspects of the industry online. And also, it was an opportunity for us to instill our safety culture. Next slide, please. So all in all, based on the study, IATA will continue to adopt our portfolio to ensure that we contribute to the industry's restart. Our focus now will be shifted to digital methods as opposed to conventional classroom training, based on the recent study, which showed that 85% of the respondents favored online learning and virtual classrooms, while 36% moved their focus to self-study or e-learning courses. Next slide. As a wrap, so to get more insights on how organizations in all sectors of the industries are making the best use of their budgets to ensure the right skills at the right time, please feel free to go to our website, www.iata.org, or any of our social media handles and search for workforce skills and training to fuel the revival of the aviation industry. So that's it from me. Thank you. I hope, thank you.
Thank you very much, Ewemade, for your presentation, where you have shared with us insights of the IATA study that was done. And we have seen what are the trends, the dynamics at the airlines, what are the needs in terms of the priorities. Safety remains at the top. And the delivery method, this has changed completely due to the pandemic.
Totally. Yes.
Yes, and what airlines are now focusing on for the restart. One of the limitations is on reduced budgets. Airlines have been severely impacted by the pandemic. And we have one question regarding the aspect of accessibility of these courses and in light of the restricted budgets. So what is IATA doing to facilitate training in view of the restricted financial resources to access this training?
Okay, to access this training, really, it's before for the African countries, we were able to help the industry. All this was done on before March 20th. We had the International Air Training Fund, which was able to help the African airlines. And as you know, this was a funding that was financed by IATA and its members. But like we all know, the corona outbreak hit the aviation industry. So we had to cancel a lot of regional courses that we had planned for Africa for the remainder of 2020 due to the lockdown and the bans on travel, like we all know. So, but aside that, towards the end of June, we were able to we launched a new virtual training program to support the airlines. 30 virtual courses were sponsored under the program. And I think, and I believe about 460 trainees coming from 58 airlines in Africa benefited from this in 2020. We are currently trying to look at the fundings we have. Like, as I mentioned, we have no funding because the airlines too that we're sponsoring were also having the same budget issue. So we intend to continue with the new virtual program in next year. We are actually currently reviewing the status, looking at what we have vis-a-vis the requests we have from the airline. So definitely we are still poised. We are still going to support the African airlines. We just need to use the 2021 to look at what we have, the requests we have, and then we'll be able to come up with a program. But it will still be under the virtual training program. That's the way forward going for now.
Thank you very much, Ewemade.
Yes.
That sufficiently responds to the question. And we have come to the end of this presentation slot in the program. We wish to inform you that the next presentation is on initiatives to blossom next generation aviation professionals by AFRAA. And we will be starting this in the next item on your program. Please go back to your event platform, select the presentation number 5, and let's meet at that session. Thank you very much, and goodbye.
Thank you. Okay, so I can go, right?